welcome everyone to the BritHick episode 16 with Connor and Aaron. We're at a bit of a time constraint because apparently today is the day where everything is happening for both of us. So let's crack on to the matter of hand. There have been a lot of music releases as of yesterday, being Friday, and not a lot of them have been good. So I think we're just gonna
controversial.
Yeah, I should say these are our opinions. You can disagree with them all you want, but our opinions are right, as is the way with the internet. So fuck you, all of you. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with that Zealand. Let's start with the New Zealand Arda tracks. Let's go in. Let's start lightly and.
Yeah. Okay. So Zealand Arda with these new songs, I think, are kind of going the same way that Chelsea Wolfe did with her last album. So with Chelsea Wolfe, she kind of had black metal-y and heavy sections in her previous albums, along with the kind of folky country stuff that she does. I don't know what you would describe it as, kind of ethereally folk, whatever. And then the most recent album she put out, there wasn't any just like growled vocals, there wasn't any like particularly distorted guitar or anything. Zealand Arda kind of do the same thing where they have, in the previous stuff, they'd have songs that had like black metal-y sounding guitar along with kind of rhythm and blues sections. And then with these two tracks that they've just released, I think they're releasing an album, and these are just two songs that they've put out, or a single and a B-side. And yeah, there's none of that. I don't like Zealand Arda anyway. I think the way that they mash the genres together is really ham-fisted. I don't think it works. I know lots of people do, but for me, and this is coming from someone who loves people that mash genres together, I don't think they do it well. And then listen to this. There's not any of that, so that's not a complaint. But I found both songs. I listened to Vigil and I Can't Breathe. They're both, in my mind, really plodding, and they don't seem to go anywhere. And I understand the sentiment of it, and I'm not slagging off what they're talking about because it's a thing that needs to be spoken about. However, compared to Run the Jewels 4, which is like highlighting the same things, Run the Jewels 4, in my mind, like does it with more poignancy, and it's cleverer, rather than using things like at the end of I Can't Breathe, it's just a load of samples of stuff that's happened. It doesn't feel like there's any urgency, and I'm listening to it and I'm just kind of like, and I'm not getting a feel for it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually quite enjoyed Vigil. I Can't Breathe, I didn't really take as a quote unquote proper song. It almost sounded like an interlude.
It's a B-side.
Yeah,
it's just
and like you said, it's like it's a kind of like instrumental loop, and then it's basically samples, obviously from on the ground recordings of like news reports and stuff, obviously from the protests and such which have been going on for the last few months. So yeah, I didn't really. I just kind of took that as it was. I was like, oh, it sounds like an interlude to me, you know. But
yeah.
The actual track Vigil, I quite enjoyed it. And I know what you mean. Like when we were talking about it this morning, I was like, oh, I kind of, there's none of the metal element in this. Not that was a complaint, but it was just quite striking. But to be honest, I think the rhythm and blues element of their sounds is actually the better element of what they do.
Yeah, the metal part, I don't like I've said, I'm not a fan of the band, so it's kind of, I'm biased because I'm not a fan of the band, but the production on the metal stuff that they've done before isn't great. the rhythm and blues stuff sounds more like what that actual wheelhouse is. But again, like, I listened to it and I was like, there's so many other songs that are better than this in the same genre.
Yeah, it's not the best song I've ever heard. Like, it didn't make me go, "Oh, this is amazing." But I I enjoyed it. I think Manuel, he's got a really nice voice. That's such a
like, I can't fault the way that his voice sounds.
Yeah, I know it's a really basic description. He's got a nice voice, but I think he's got a good voice. Like, and it's a soulful kind of sound to his voice. It's like, it's, to me, like I was saying earlier, it wasn't probably not the best comparison, but when I was listening to that track, I was like, oh, this, to me, it just makes me think of someone like Gary Clark Jr. with a piano.
Yeah,
and it does have that, it does have that bluesy feel to it, and I think that's what I enjoyed about it. Lyrically as well, it's quite pertinent. Obviously, there's some lines that kind of stick to mind. It's like, it's a cell phone. Please don't shoot. It is clearly like directly referencing incidences of what's been going on, the police situation over in the US. And I'm kind of torn how I feel about the lyrical approach. Like, I know I've just complimented it, but I do like the way it's very direct. There's no mystery what it's on about, but then in some way that sometimes that can come across ham-fisted. I've definitely heard worse examples of people trying to make a social or political comment and it coming across like really clumsily, like But I think it's always something it's hard to do perfect, because contrary to that, if you're too obtuse about it, it's very easy to say, well, just say what you mean, That's down to personal preference, I guess, like lyrics and lyrical
I think
delivery.
you need to be abstract in sections so that when you're direct, it makes more like it's more poignant.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're direct all the time, it's just like, oh, you're just gonna sound off all the time. And then if you're abstract all the time, then people might not know what you're going on about. Whereas if you're speaking in metaphor, and then at the end of that metaphor, you make like a direct statement for like one or two lines, it's like, oh, okay, that's what that's what that whole thing is going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, for me, it was like the percussion and stuff. It was just really like, it's gonna sound really bad. It made me think of chain gang music.
Well, it's meant to, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're going for. But for me, it's just like plodding. There's not any. I don't know. Like, falls right in the gap of where I like slow music, like doom and stuff, and where I like fast music. It's like falling in the hole between, and it's like, it's not slow and heavy, and it's not all got the kind of somber feeling that I resonate with, and it's not upbeat or fast. It's just kind of falling in the hole between.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm probably going to sound like I've completely gone against what I was just saying, but I don't think it left the impact that it's meant to. It didn't. I didn't listen to it and feel like, oh, bloody hell! Like afterwards, like,
yeah,
I didn't feel like I've been taken through the ringer.
No, I did. Yeah, I wasn't moved.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that people will be. The fans of Zealanada will probably be moved by it.
Yeah,
but
and you know what I mean. It's not to. I'm not trying to shit on it. But I know obviously there will be people like, oh, it's really moving. Like, don't get me wrong, I commend it and I commend the sentiment. It just didn't leave that lasting effect on me. Like, it's not something I'll need to go back and listen to again and again and again.
Yeah. Okay. I think we'll talk about the new Napalm Death song.
Yeah. I guess
first of all,
yeah, go on.
First of all, I should say we are aware that they have done this type of stuff before.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people who's like, oh, you don't like Napalm Death because you just think that they've been grindcore all the time. It's like, no, I understand that they've done slower, sludgier, kind of almost gothy sounding in places. Stuff. I didn't like it when I heard the stuff that they did before, and I don't like the stuff that they're doing now. And again, that's just down to my personal preference. I don't particularly like that kind of gothy sound, slower stuff. Again, as we were talking about like stuff like Typo Negative before, so I don't like Typo Negative. So it's just like, well, I listened to it and it's like, wow, is this going to get to a point? No. Okay.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, what you just said. Well aware that they've done songs in this vein before. They have got an experimental kind of branch to their sound, which I really respect it, because it'd be so easy for them just to bang out another track of what they excel at, you know.
Yeah, they could easily just roll out 10 Suffer the Children and be done with it.
But the fact that it's a band so far into their career that is still, you know, they're not just playing by the numbers. Like, I completely respect that. Just for me, it's not the side of Napalm Death that excites me.
Yeah, and when I can't remember if this is 2 or 3. I think the first one they released was a heavier song. The second one that they put out was slower, more experimentally. And it was like, oh, okay, so they're going to have an experimental song in the album, cool. And then the second song is more, the third song is more like the second song. So that out of 3 singles that they've done, only one of them has been the Napalm Death that if you say Napalm Death, people think of.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. But it's one of those things as well where I've seen a lot of people like, the vocals don't sound like Barney. It's like, and to think that he has such a distinctive voice,
and
everyone's like, but this doesn't sound like Barney's vocals, it sounds like someone else's vocals. It's like, oh shit. But yeah, like it's not the side of Napalm that I'm a fan of.
And I don't think it really, the track never really lifted to anywhere. It just kind of, it was a bit of it's only 4.5 minutes, but it was a bit of a chore.
It felt longer.
Yeah. They were like
I thought I'd been listening for about 4.5-5 minutes, and I'd got about 2.5-3 minutes in. It was like, fuck, you know.
But it definitely creates a mood and an atmosphere. Like, it succeeds in doing that. It's quite. I'm not going to say bleak, because I didn't get that. It's quite claustrophobic.
Yeah, I guess not in an oppressive claustrophobic way, because I was going to use that when I was talking about Aoth later on, with the way that sounds. Whereas Aoth is claustrophobic because it feels really close and intense.
Yeah.
Whereas the Napalm Death, it's not intense in that way.
No, I think because there's not, and I don't mean this in a detrimental way, because there's not an awful lot going on instrumentally. It's like the pounding kind of like drum beat, and then like I think you're more drawn into the vocals. That's what feels claustrophobic. And it's
because the vocals are produced quite close. They're quite dry.
Yeah, and the vocal style and delivery, it's a bit kind of, I guess it's kind of like, it's a kind of sinister kind of feeling, I guess. Especially some of the more whispered sections and stuff.
Yeah. It's almost like spoken word.
Yeah, it gets under your skin a little bit. So it I would say it succeeds in creating a mood and stuff. But yeah, I prefer I prefer Napalm Death when they sound like an attack dog.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we could go back on this and then people would say, oh, you're complaining like how people complained when Celtic Frost released Monotheist, because obviously that was such a drastic change for Celtic Frost.
Yeah. The thing is, though, I'm not even saying, oh, it's shit. Like, I think it succeeds in what it wants to do, and like I said, I really respect that they are pushing the envelope of what their sound is at even this far along now, where they could easily just play it safe. Which sounds funny to say when it's a grindcore band you're talking about playing it safe, but like, I respect it, and I think they succeeded in what the intent of the track. It's just not it's not what I enjoy from them.
Yeah, it's not like they've tried something and it's a failure.
Yeah,
it's successful in what they want to do, but we're not a fan of the output.
Yeah, and it's weird because there are really, like, I know sonically it's different, but the fundamental aspects of like what makes that sound up, like the sparse instrumentation and like the kind of almost industrious or sounding kind of drum beats and stuff. It's a lot of elements of like early post-punk, which I really like, but just in this kind of delivery, it just doesn't do much for me.
Yeah. I guess this kind of goes on because we're talking about a grindcore band that's being experimental, goes into the Pig Destroyer EP that came out.
I haven't got around to listen to this yet, so
the first half of it, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's an EP, but it's 25 minutes. They probably could have got away with calling it an album. And then I realised why they've called it an EP, and it's because the second half of it is all electronic-y soundscape stuff.
Oh, okay.
So the first half of it is Pig Destroyer, like as you would expect, like standard Pig Destroyer to be. Sounds good, ferocious, like as you would kind of expect. And then there's an interlude section, which I've forgotten. I can't remember the name of the track. So something about TV, and it's about 45 seconds long. And then the second half of the EP starts, and it's all like electronic-y soundscape stuff, which I was into, but it again, by the time that I was halfway through the last track, I was like, I'm done with this now. Like, I don't need to hear any more of it. And again, kind of like with the Napalm Death stuff, is they've succeeded with what they wanted to do. I didn't mind it as much as like the Napalm Death tracks, but at the same time, if I go back and listen to it, I'm going to listen to the first three songs and then move on to something else. I'm not gonna sit there and listen to what it was like 13 minutes of electronic output that they've done. So yeah, again, it's almost like it's been made for a vinyl release.
Oh, so like an A side and a B side.
Yeah. So the first half is grindcore, then the second half is like the electronic stuff. It almost feels like that, with the interlude section being the end of the first side, and then the second side is like the electronic style stuff. But yeah, the first half of it was fine. It was just the second half of it kind of like threw a curveball. In fact, so much so that I had someone message me when I posted up about on my stories that I was listening to it. So I was like, what do you think of the second half? And I was like, I get the vibe they're going for. It's enjoyable, but yeah, and he was like, yeah, I don't get it. Basically. But again, they have a history of doing weird stuff. I mean, they did Natasha, which was like one song, and how long was that? I can't remember now.
Well, it's a whole set's worth, wasn't it? So I think it's like at least half an hour.
Yeah, I want to say it's like 44 minutes or something. But so it's not completely out of the blue. It's just a bit of a weird one, because when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, here's an interlude. Oh, here's an electronic bit. Oh, this is the whole song. Oh, and there's another one. and it just like, oh yeah, there's no more kind of band driven stuff on it. So what else? Killer Be Killed.
Oh.
So when the first album came out, I said the same of what I'm gonna say now, is if you're a supergroup and you're writing an album, you should meld your ideas together. It shouldn't be here's so and so section, and here's so and so section, and here's so and so section, and then everyone else learns their parts, and then it just gets pressed together, which is what Killer Be Killed is. Yeah. It's like, oh, here's Troy's section, here's Greg's section, here's Max's section. Ben might have written that section. Obviously, he writes the drums for it all, but even it does, like, when it's a section that's like, oh, this is like a Max section, it doesn't sound like Ben's drumming.
No.
It's like it's been programmed, and then he's just played what's been programmed. Like, there's no embellishment on anything like in how he does in Converge. It's like very straight sounding. And this song is exactly the same, almost more so, to a point where I called it a box ticking exercise. It was like, what have we got to do for the single? Well, obviously we've got to have everyone singing, so we'll start with Troy singing, and then we'll have a bit of Max singing, and we'll have Greg singing now. Oh, and then we'll have a harmony part. Oh, and then we'll have a breakdown section. Oh, and the intro needs to sound a bit like Soulfly. And it's just like, what the actual fuck? Honestly,
it's so. I'm not a huge fan of supergroups anyway, because I think historically they're not much cop. But
Down's a supergroup.
I guess it is. Like,
the thing is that when you start talking about stuff like this, it's like, oh, it's a supergroup. But when the supergroups are good, they don't get called a supergroup anymore. It's like, oh, it's just a band.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you consider the bands that the members of Killer Be Killed have come from, and the caliber of material they've put out over their careers, it's just so underwhelming. It's so underwhelming. Like,
it's pony. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The caliber of musicians that they all are, and it's just like lowest common denominator. It's like, I'll go back to the Soulfly thing again, because it's like the most obvious one. It always sticks out. It's like, you could ask someone who plays guitar, who knows who Soulfly are, write a Soulfly riff, and it will probably sound like what's on the Killer Be Killed stuff.
Mm.
It's literally like scraping the scum off of something. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just use that.
Yeah,
that'll be fine. The first thing that comes to my mind.
Like, and I understand that, obviously, as speaking as a musician, like, sometimes it is nice to do something away from your quote unquote day job, obviously, like your main band. Like, I've already said that before. If I did another project, like, I wouldn't want to do another death metal project. It seemed pointless to me. Yeah. So I understand, obviously, Troy coming from Mastodon are very progressive, and I know, obviously, Dillinger have called it a day now. Well, I have for like a couple of years ago. And Greg has done other stuff outside of Dillinger, like the Black Queen, which is more electronic led and stuff like that. But, you know, you think of Dillinger and how experimental Dillinger were. So I understand, maybe for those guys, like we want to do something which is a bit more straight down the middle and isn't progressive or experimental. I understand that, but it's like, how does none of that how does none of that bleed across into the project? Because this is really like it's really basic stuff, and I don't mean in a technical proficiency sense. It's just like the songwriting, like the parts, like it's very vanilla. It's very forgettable, and it's just.
But you can tell who's written what part though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that kind of sounds like Mastodon, or all that kind of sounds a bit like Dillinger Escape Planny, and it's like, well, But if you, I understand what you're saying. It's like if you want to do straight rock stuff or whatever, try and do, like separate it a bit more, because you can still tell. It's like, oh, this is Troy's part, oh, this is Greg's part. It's like, well, if you're gonna do a separate band, make the riffs separate. Like, don't. Well, it's like the comparison is Giraffe Tongue Orchestra, because that was Brent and Ben's project. So it's two members from the same band, so members from Mastodon and Dillinger Escape Plan again. And I can't remember, did they have this sax player from Mars Volta? I can't remember. But that's like, if you listen to it, it sounds nothing like the bands that they're in. And it's like, well, they've actually sat there and written something that's different between the two of them, and their ideas have intermingled into something that's its own thing. Whereas Killer Be Killed is literally, here's some blocks that I've written, let's mush them to. It's almost like the difference between having ABC blocks and making a song out of that, or Play-Doh and mushing it together and making a song out of that. Do you know what I mean? You have this own thing, or you can just have, this is my section, this is his section, this is so and so section. And it's just like, I'm just there kind of listening to it going, the one thing that I was like, maybe they'll actually be a band and they'll do something that's their own sound. It's like, no, they haven't.
No. Like, as well, like, instrumentally, I think if you took the vocalists off of this could be any mid-tier, like, American radio-friendly rock, like hard rock / metalcore band. Like the chorus, I said it earlier, like, when we were talking about it, like the chorus just made me think of like something like Black Veil Brides. I was like, this is shit. Like, it's like, sounds really scathing. Like, but yeah, I was really like, I just think it's really, really underwhelming. Like, it's not. There's nothing special about it, and that sounds harsh to say, but there just isn't.
No, it's just like,
I know a good song isn't all about like everyone's like, oh, clearly guitarist talking. Like, I know a good song isn't about the riff like all the time, but when you're a metal band and you've got, you know, it's like it's Max Cavalera, it's Troy Sanders, it's Greg Puciato, and it's Ben Collar. It's like there's not a single like kind of standout riff in it at all. It's just like, I don't understand how you've managed this. Like,
if the Netherlands was a song, it's that flat.
Oh god.
Just like, there's nothing that stands out. It's just like,
I wondered where you were going with that. I thought you were about to just slag off like the Dutch. I was like, whoa.
I just, Teeth Grinder will beat me up the next time I see him.
No, they're Danish, remember?
They're Danish, oh yeah.
At Lewis Butler.
It has kind of given me a segue to that bloody band that I messaged you.
I listened to that properly this morning. Yeah, Jesus.
So, Cardiff Vox Academy, the metal vocalist that actually reviews metal vocalists and shows you like various things, and he does lessons and stuff. That song got voted, which is why I heard it.
I did wonder how you'd come across that song. I was like, this is so far outside of what Aaron enjoys. Like, how has he stumbled across it?
Yeah, so that's why. And he played it, and I was just like, this is absolutely fucking appalling. What did I say the band was called?
Oh,
it was like Wise Man Shoes. Wise Man Shoes.
The Wise Man's Fear, or something like that. Wise Man's Shoes.
I don't know. Like, I'm just.
Yeah, the Wise Man's Fear.
Wise Man's Fear.
The Wise Man's Shoes.
Yeah. Well. Oh God. Yeah. I could fucking. Jesus. They were. So. I think this is something that, like, I don't know if this is going to be the same with a lot of people. I think I would find someone that listens to that kind of metal more annoying than listening to a completely different genre of music. Someone that's like, yeah, I'm going to listen to really bad late 2000s metalcore. Do you want to like try and describe what it is?
I'll use two visual cues to describe the sound, and everyone will know exactly what it sounds like. They're all dressed in black, headbanging in unison, and the video's in a forest.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what you're getting.
Like...
You got two vocalists. One does the screams. One does the really high pitched cleans. Sounds like 1,000 other metalcore vocalists. The whole song sounded like two sections repeating with a little melody from one of the guitarists. It was really, really boring.
The vocals were shit as well. Like did you notice that like when he growled, it was really breathy?
Yeah,
and you could hear the like just as it came in, like almost like the little like the high pitched breath before like the actual like growl came in. It was just like,
I think vocalists started doing that as a stylistic thing, and I really hate it.
Surely it's got to be like bad to be breathy and growling at the same time.
I guess obviously if you're using the right technique, like it
didn't sound like he was using the right technique. It sounded like it was all coming from his throat. It was like,
yeah. I was underwhelmed. Like I've said that word so much today.
And the clean vocals were your standard. It's the Brian Potion bit, isn't it? This is the gay part.
Oh
like,
God!
In Metal by Numbers.
Yeah.
It's just like flouncy, really high pitched. You can kind of hear the auto tune on it. Like no grit in it at all.
Yeah. And I've got
is coming through his nose, basically, kind of clean vocal.
Yeah, I've got a real gripe as well with bands with two vocalists who literally don't do any overlap or like interesting like vocal interplay. It's literally like I'm going to do the screams in the verses and you will sing the clean choruses. It's so boring.
Yeah,
it's
like you have two vocalists. Why are you not utilizing the fact that you have two vocalists?
Yeah.
They could have one better vocalist, basically.
Yeah, doing both bits.
Doing both parts. So I'm trying to think where I was going. Just the fact, like with the Killer Be Kill stuff, it's just really generic, like that band.
Yeah.
Like
doesn't sound like that band, but yeah, it's generic. Yeah.
What was the other one we were gonna?
Raging Speedhorn.
Yeah. So Raging Speedhorn put a song out that, for all intents and purposes, I should like, and I listened to it and went, "This ain't for me." The video as well is kind of like playing into what they're trying to do a lot.
Yeah.
But they're not from where that is.
Yeah, I'm a bit funny about like don't get me wrong, there's bands that can kind of do it well and get away with it, but I've got a bit of a I'm always a bit kind of wary of bands from the UK trying to do that kind of southern metal sounds. It's like you're not from Georgia, you're from, in Raging Speedhorn's case, you're from Corby.
Yeah.
Like those two things aren't the same.
Yeah, and it's not to say don't like have that influence.
Yeah,
but if that's your only influence, yeah, I don't know. Like it left me massively cold. I listened to it and I was like, this sounds like every other southern rock band going.
Well, I made some notes when I was listening to it, and I'm just going off my notepad here. So, I thought it was an average at best offering for a band this far into the game. There are some lyrical cliches befitting mid 2010s metalcore. Some of the lyrics I can remember were something about being 6 feet under, and I've been dealt the.
That was like the opening line.
Yeah,
as well.
I've been dealt the dead man's hand. And I was like, this is good. And a riff you've heard 1,000 times and forgotten twice as much.
Yeah, it's like 0, 12, 13, 15, 12.
Yeah.
Just that high. every southern band doing the high notes but on the low string to get that wah sound when they're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, you'd expect for them to be around as long as they have, split up, reform, and then have like something quite anticipated that, I don't know, that there'd be more gusto or something there. And it's just like, oh, it sounds like we said, every southern rock band.
Yeah, and not as good.
Yeah.
Like, this probably sounds like, the last 25 minutes probably sounds like we really don't like music.
Well, no, but
I know. This is the thing. Yeah, we do like music. This is why we're saying this.
Yeah, it's like, when we'll get to like some stuff that I've listened to that I like at some point. But it hasn't come out this week. That's the thing.
No, yeah.
So,
and the thing, I think it's important. We're not just trying to sound this stuff to sound like edgy or be pricks. It's just white. I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff, you know. And it's again with this Raging Speedhorn track. It's not like subjectively, it's not a crap song. It's just like, oh, it's just serviceable, you know. If this was like a new band, you'd be like, oh, all right. Like, let's see how they progress their sound.
Yeah.
But it's not a new band. And it's like you said, you've had, you know, they split up, they come back and that. They've had X amount of years in between that. It's like, sure, you know, I'm not expecting it to sound like Rush, but it's like, surely the riffs could be hit a bit better and just could be a bit more meat on the bones here. Like, it just is, yeah. It's like, I'd expect to hear like, kind of like, you know, a band on like a local show and that just do a song like this.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's just, I guess that's the word, it's serviceable. It's like there's nothing that is going to blow you away.
The interplay between the southern rock and distorted vocals is odd as well. It's like, those are vocals that should have been, that are more for when they were doing more aggressive stuff.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed. So they're doing southern rock, but with the like, and they're very distorted on that on the recording as well, like through a megaphone style vocal. I think that's actually, like,
you've just made a point there. Obviously, the earlier, more aggressive stuff, and I think that's something that irks me with Raging Speedhorn. Like I said last night as well, I've always thought they were pretty average, to be honest. I know there's people that love them and would probably want to crucify me for that, but it's like they're always been quite an average band, personally, in my opinion. But the earlier stuff was aggressive and it was quite ugly and like just nasty sounding, and they've gotten softer as they've gone on, and I'm like, oh, I don't really. You've lost your bite.
Yeah, it's a similar progression to Hang the Bastard, but I feel like Hang the Bastard did it better.
Yeah, Hang the Bastard obviously just switched the kind of genre up, so it's like, oh, okay, like, and it was cool, like, but yeah, this is kind of like, oh, you're just an old dog with less teeth now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like,
I guess a similar band that did something different was Pissed. Like, Pissed went from doing that kind of stuff, and now they're doing that kind of like black metal-y stuff. But again, it's not like it's shoehorned in. It like they've made it work.
Yeah, it all coalesces together well.
Yeah. So if you like Raging Speedhorn, listen to Pissed instead. Yeah. So, I mean, what do we know? Like, they're obviously in a more successful band than either of us have been in. So,
yeah, I think it's like, and again, I don't want it to come across like I'm just trying to shit on it. Like, it's just like, oh, I want it to like stove my head in, you know.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't. It's just, oh, all right. It's a bit lukewarm.
You know,
yeah. You know.
Speaking of stove my head in, The new Cytotoxin album is gas. I know that I played you the one before, and you weren't a fan because it was very widdly. There's sweeps popping off all over the place in the album that I think I played you before. Whereas I think with this one, I mean, there's still a lot of like sweep picking in technical sections, but there's also it's not like as over the top through everything.
Right. Okay.
Where, and there's like more kind of riffs. Still technical, but you know how we were talking about Archspire are a good technical death metal band because it's not just widdly all the time.
Yeah.
It's like they actually construct songs. It feels like that they're constructing songs better.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than just like throwing, like, we can do this section and we can tap in here and then we'll do a sweep on it. And the vocals are a bit different. They're like, instead of being kind of low, they're kind of like low mid.
Okay.
Same vocalist, but he's just kind of like changed his delivery a little bit. Yeah. Production's good. Just enjoyable. Listen to the whole lot. I was like, that was a solid album. I was going to say about older stuff, and I mispronounced the band's name when I said it earlier. It's Aosoth, I think. It's Aosoth.
Okay.
Excuse me. I want to say they're French. Black metal band. And someone just posted them like a YouTube video of a song on my Facebook, and I was like, I haven't. The album artwork looks interesting. I'll have a listen. And it's probably some of the best black metal that I've heard in like 18 months, 2 years.
Oh, okay.
It's like proper. There was what we said about it being claustrophobic, but this is claustrophobic in a way where like it is close. Everything's quite close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were French. We're a French band.
Yeah, the riffs aren't generic. It's not like a Mayhem ripoff or anything. I would say some of the chord patterns and things they're using are more kind of like Winterfell Woden's Throne-y, except darker sounding. Whereas I feel like Winterfell has that kind of like big epic thing going on with a lot of their kind of chord progressions. Whereas this is a lot more dark, murky sounding, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, just like really enjoyable. Like, I mean, the songs are quite long. The riffs do repeat. Like they go on for quite a long time, but they almost falls into that kind of like hypnotic chord progression style thing that you have going on sometimes. They don't seem to fall into any tropes or anything like that, which is obviously with black metal is probably the easiest genre to fall into a trope with,
as we've discussed. Yeah.
But yeah, so like randomly listened to them this week, listened to that whole album, was really impressed. I listened to the album before, like I think the production lets it down a bit. It's like too clean. The album before was like, I can hear all of the separate parts to it, which I guess in like a death metal recording is what you want. But when they're playing these kind of like dissonant big chord sections, it's like, you want that to kind of meld together into kind of like an atmospheric sound.
Yeah.
More than it being like really obvious that this is just a guitar part or something. I think it's done better on the most recent album. Production wise, it probably sounds like they've taken a step back, but for the record, I think it helps. And another one which I mentioned to you before, because we were saying about like mashing of genres and like just people getting it wrong. Or in my mind, it's sounding wrong. So like Killer Be Killed and Zealanada, where it's just like shoehorned together. They're only a band for like 18 months, 2 years. They're from Kent called Beroth. I checked on their Facebook; they've got like 260 likes on their Facebook now.
Oh wow!
I think they never got like past 500 likes on Facebook.
Yeah,
they did an EP back in 2014 called Burning Sermons, and it's fucking sick. Like I listened to it again because I thought I would be able to get it on streaming services, but it's not there. The only way you can get it is on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like at the time, if they had carried on going, they would be really big now because it was really well done, blackened hardcore. And considering that it was coming out right at when bands were kind of coming out doing that kind of stuff, bands like Svalbard and things like that, I think if they had carried on, that they would have like progressed and possibly got quite big with those other bands that were kind of doing a similar thing. And I think, for me anyway, they had a sound similar to other bands, but it was definitely its own sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like I think it's a real shame when you find a band like that, where with the benefit of foresight, it's like that sound, like what they're doing, it could have really like grown.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not a fault of the band. It's just time and place, isn't it? But there are definitely instances of that. And from like definitely, I'll need to check these guys out because I love that kind of like black and hardcore sound.
I'm trying to think of other bands that do it, but I haven't got any that come to mind straight away.
Yeah, I've just like mind blanked. It's like you can immediately know what the sound is, but yeah, when it's like trying to pull examples out of the air.
Like the only gigs that they played and stuff were with Crossburner, so it kind of like, which is interesting because obviously Graham played in Crossburner. But you kind of get an idea of the bands that they were playing with at the time.
Yeah.
And what was the band before Geist called? Was it like Famine? No.
I'm not sure. We'll have to ask.
Cholera.
We'll have to ask your doppelganger, mate.
It's Cholera,
okay.
I think. So I think they played a couple shows with them, and then like just didn't really do anything. Is annoying because they released a really good record, and it was like, oh yeah, we're going to play like 3 shows and then not do anything.
Bloody hell.
Okay. So yeah, I listened to that for the first time in ages because it's not available in the streaming, so it's not readily to hand. Trying to think of if there's anything else that I've like. It's been a week of bad music over good music. I've just had like my daily mix on Spotify is predominantly hip hop stuff. I listened to the new Necrot album because I saw some people like raving about it. Nah, not for me either. I don't know. I listened to it.
It's been a week.
And I was like,
It's been a week of misses for Aaron.
I think it's the drums.
Okay.
It falls into that kind of old school death metal, like slow Dakar beat a lot. It's like Dakar, 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 Dakar. Like,
yeah.
But just a lot of it. There's no like bomb blasts or like a lot of double kick. Well, there is a bit, obviously, but it's just like, where's the tempo? When I was there, I was like, just like sat listening to it, like, nah. You listen to a couple songs and if it grabs you or not. But yeah, that didn't grab me. But again, it's not really my genre. That kind of old school. When bands say that OSDM, I will probably not enjoy them.
Yeah.
So, I listened to Zyklon again. That was gas.
Yeah, I've been kind of my listening's been a bit all over the shop over the last week because obviously, cat's out of the bag now. Obviously, like the previously mentioned secret covers band is the 900, which is my Tony Hawk's covers band. And we're doing a live stream gig tonight which is pointless for me saying because this episode won't go out till Monday, so you might have missed the live stream gig on Saturday. So I've been listening to obviously like loads of the songs from the Tony Hawk soundtrack just because we've been putting the sets together and everything. And they are bangers as well, so they're just nice to listen to. So I've been listening to a lot of like late 90s / early 2000s era skate punk and rap metal. And then after we'd mentioned it in the last episode, I've listened to Death Atlas again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a wicked album, isn't it? Like,
it is pretty gas, to be fair.
Obviously, like, quite comically prophetic about this year.
Yeah, that's the weird thing.
Yeah.
I think Travis has said he wish he never wrote that fucking song.
Yeah. But yeah, quality album. Even after, like, when I listened to it first, obviously you were straight on it, like, oh yeah. So I checked it out, and I think I listened to it about 4 times all the way through when I first checked it out, which I was like, yeah, this album is solid. And even now, like, listening to it and having heard it like a good few times, it still makes me do the face like at multiple points. That's,
yeah,
like, you know, but yeah, it's punishing records.
Do you see what I mean though about like there being a lot of sections that are like kind of black metal guitar?
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah.
Just like lots of high pitched guitar.
Yeah. It's so scalpel precise, isn't it? As well, without being soulless, it's just like impressive. Like,
yeah, and I don't know if it's like Josh's playing style because they were a one guitar band for such a long time, but there's not a lot of just kind of just trem picked riffs, like open trem picking. It's either really quick palm muted trem picking or chords.
Yeah,
like some kind of chord shape to like fill out the sound.
Yeah.
I guess the interesting thing as well, that's the first record that had Oliver on bass rather than Derek. Because Derek used to play with a pick and Oliver plays with fingers. Because he's also the bassist for Cryptopsy.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's kind of interesting to kind of hear the difference between them. I don't think there's a massive difference like on the record, to be honest, like between the two of them. So
yes, and then aside from that, going even like saying I've been listening to a lot of stuff that's already out. Going even further back, I've been listening to a load of 1 second, completely lost my train of thought there. I've been listening to a load of Albert Collins.
I've never heard of Albert Collins.
So let me just grab the tracks up 1 second.
I'm just looking at what my daily mix is, and it's basically Run the Jewels, Lord Finesse, MF Doom, NWA. I had Tribe Called Quest here earlier. Break One, Mad Villain, Wu-Tang. There's one here that I hadn't heard before by a guy called Large Professor. That was pretty good.
What a name.
It's gone here as well. There was a one called a guy called Bus Driver. That was pretty good.
Bus Driver, yeah. He had a song on Tony Hawk's as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Imaginary Places. Really, really fast.
But yeah, so I mean that's predominantly what's going on my car at the moment is that. So obviously it changes daily, but it's predominantly that style of hip hop.
Yeah.
So, but it's a weird one, and I was thinking about this. I was like, I wonder if people in America listen to grime in the same way that I listen to American hip hop, because I don't like the way that accents and the way that the beats are and stuff in grime, and I don't know if that's because I'm English and I'm just used to that accent.
So, I mean, I was looking into this last week, and I was watching like a few videos about that exact topic about why grime hasn't really translated in America.
Oh, right, okay.
And a lot of that is obviously hip hop and rap are predominantly 100 BPM or sub 100 BPM tempo beats, and Grime's traditionally like 140. So it's faster than what an American audience is used to. So the bounce isn't something they're used to, and the slang terms they're not familiar with, and the accent is a bit of a barrier.
Right. Okay.
And the flow, because it's grime flows can be quite fast, obviously compared to traditional. Grime flows can be quite fast compared to like what you traditionally think of when you come to like a rap flow or a hip hop flow. For American listeners, it's not something their ears like used to. I was like watching a video on Hip Hop Madness channel on YouTube about it. And they're like some of the big factors about why American listeners find it hard to get into or don't take much interest in it.
Right. Okay.
And also it goes into the it's points of reference, isn't it? Because for us listening to grime, predominantly, obviously, a lot of the artists are London based. And I'm not for a second trying to say, oh yeah, we've lived that life. I don't mean that, but we understand the points of reference. Like we know those places. We know about the situations that happen that they talk about. Obviously not experiencing it firsthand. But you understand what's being spoken about. Whereas if you're in Chicago and you're hearing someone talk about Lewisham, you're not gonna relate to it in the same way. And I was reading some of the comments as well, and it was getting quite heated. Some of the comments actually, but some people as well will boil it down to the fact of it's quite crude way to kind of boil it down, but they're like, well, grime artists are going on about people being stabbed, whereas I live in a place where people get shot daily, so it's like small fry to me. Like it's not hard. I was like, oof, I didn't really think about it in that way, but I guess so. So yeah, there's like a cultural divide in terms of like American to English kind of ear, and there's also, I think there's an element of kind of one-upmanship, or like it's not real, like it's not as tough. But that boils down into the more hardcore audience,
Yeah, it's one of those weird things because there's geographical references in American hip hop as well.
Oh yeah. But I mean, because of its American audience, they know they can relate. You know what I mean? Yeah. They know about those states and they get it. Like whereas, like for us, like we don't have first-hand experience of like Chicago street beef or like New York and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's weird. Like it's. I don't know.
That was the weird thing for me when we went to see De La Soul, Public Enemy, and Wu-Tang. I was like, everyone is white.
Yeah. I think when it comes to an audience for American hip hop, though, it's American rap and hip hop is the basis for what all of the offshoots of the genre have come out of. So
yeah,
us and people older than us you've grown up with that. So
yeah,
it's more you're more familiar with it, I guess, and it's such a dominant force, Whereas I guess for Americans, they're like, I don't need to be in, like, I don't need to worry about grime. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, hip hop's such a massive thing. And that's not to dismiss grime. I'm just trying to think of it from the perspective of an American. They'd probably be like, well, why do I need to be bothered about it? Because it's not really crossed the pond, has it? It's not made an impact over there so much.
But I'm thinking the other way now is that black communities in the UK aren't listening to American hip hop so much anymore.
Oh no,
because they're now doing grime, and garage and like drill and things like that. It's almost like, oh well, we don't care about American hip hop anymore because we've got our own stuff.
Yeah,
So it's almost like it's happening the other way as well now.
Yeah, I really like that as well. I like the fact that British rappers aren't trying to make stuff that sounds like American hip hop, and it is just like, well, we'll do what we want. Fuck it. Like, I rate that a lot.
Yeah,
That's when, and this is the thing. I've said it in other conversations. Like, in a way, grime really is the new punk. Like, if you want to really get,
I mean,
it's very DIY fundamentally. Like, it's very, it rubs people up a certain way. Like, it rubs the right people up the wrong way. You know, it does.
Yeah,
and that's good.
It puts the willies up them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really interesting thing to look at. It's a really interesting thing to look into, like like how the audience is different, kind of resistance to it and stuff. Like, because I guess for us, fundamentally, obviously our background and what we do, we play metal, and it has never really been a thing like, well, I'm only going to listen to like British metal, or I'm only going to listen to American metal or whatever. It's such a crossover. And both, like,
could you imagine just listening to British metal? How shit would that be?
It'd be quite sad. Don't get me wrong, there's some wicked bands, but probably like easily majority of stuff I listen to is American. Well, you wouldn't have any death metal for a start.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a top 5 bands. I don't think any of them are British.
Yeah, not my personal top 5 anyway.
Well, Carcass.
Oh yeah.
They use like, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Igor is French. Unexpected French Canadian. I don't know. Like, those are normally my 2 go-tos for who's your favourite band? It's like, well, one of those 2 normally is what I go for. Not really thought about it so much. I'm just trying to think of like. I think the problem is as well is that I'm gonna sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, is that like I by proxy know quite a lot of like the extreme metal bands in Britain.
Yeah.
By touring, so it's like, well, they're not my favourite bands because they're my mates.
Yeah.
They kind of like they end up in a separate category. But yeah, that's by the by. Yeah.
Just a quick one, because I don't want to leave him out. I'm saying about Albert Collins. So he's a Texas blues guitarist.
Right.
Listen, you say you're not familiar with him?
Not off the top of my head, no, I haven't.
Right.
The name doesn't ring a bell.
Listen to a track called "If Trouble Was Money," and the solo in the middle is like, it's a heartbreaker. It's wicked. That's what blues sounds like.
Right. Okay.
Quality. Really good.
Give it a spin.
So yeah, I've been trying to swat up a bit more on, the kind of blues legends and like the classic blues players and stuff. So yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting voyage of listening this like past week.
Yeah, it's just a shame that the stuff that's come out that I've heard so far this week, none of it's taken my fancy particularly.
Yeah.
I guess we should call it there. You've got to be gone in 10 minutes, so.
Yeah, I'm a busy man today.
Yeah, as am I. I've got, well, it's not as if it's like anything exciting. It's like I've got a shitload of laundry to do, and I've got to go get my head shaved, and yeah, just sort out the house.
I'm getting a little trim today as well, actually. There we go.
A clean bonnet. I'm fully in like bold man hair.
Yeah.
You can just see the fact that like
a little crescent.
There is a bold. Yeah, you can see that there's a bold patch. It's like at that point, it's like, oh, it all needs to come off. I'd rather be completely bald at this point. It's fucking pointless. It's like, oh, the hair that I have grows really quickly. That's exactly not what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess we should call it there. Thanks everyone for having a listen. If you haven't found us on social media yet, what the fuck are you doing? It's at the BritHick for everything. Yeah, and we'll see you next week, and hopefully we won't be slagging off more releases. Or maybe this will be a thing that we start doing now. We'll start listening to the week's releases and we'll just slag them off.
Send us your music so we can take the piss out. No, I'm joking. Send us your music so we can send us your music so we can listen to it, please.
Right, cool. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.